Okay, Henry, let's dive into our player profile series. A week away from the draft, we're still looking at some players. And today, let's look at defensive end Zach Harrison out of Ohio State.
Yeah, so he's one who, again, 5-star recruit. Like you love that. Of course he is. He went to Ohio State. Now he's a draft pick. But
he was the top defensive lineman in the country coming out of high school.
Yeah, I mean, he just an absolute freak. I can't see exactly what I wrote. Physical tools, not totally freak, but physical tools. There you go. Basically the same thing. The production obviously hasn't matched that. Y'all guys flipping me off. I just don't think just because you're not on camera you get away with that stuff.
He's doing it with a smile too. I love it.
You were smiling too. You're laughing. But so Zach Harrison, obviously, like if he had produced to that level, he's a first round pick because he has all the tools. You look at 6'5", 274. I mean, geez, like what more could you be asking for? Probably fits best as a defensive end in a 4-3 would be my take. But again, there's plenty of things that you could do with him. If you want to say like, look at him like that can just be Bradley Chubb. I don't think he spent too much time playing going backward, but again, what were you getting out of Bradley Chubb in coverage? What do you expect out of Randy Gregory in coverage? It's just a thing that you have to do sometimes when you run a 3-4. The other option is say, maybe you don't even have to put any weight on him. Maybe you could just say, we can play him as a 3-4 defensive end. We'll structure the defense so he's playing on the edge. And again, like, that's something that you worry about in the first year or two and say, he hasn't really done too much of this exactly. But what did George Payton say today? It's not just about what a guy can do in year one. It's about getting somebody who can be a great player. And once he figures out his game, assuming you can teach it to him, I think he's going to be fitting just fine in any scheme. And with the tools and the strength and the size and all of that sort of stuff, he's going to be a good player. And I guess real quick, just because I said not the most productive in college, 3.5 sacks this year, 2 sacks year before, 2 before that, 3.5 year before that. And 3.5 is a true freshman. You see that and think, wow, this guy's going to be a freak. 8 tackles for loss last year, which is a decent number. Again, it's not like he did nothing. It's just that if he was a little bit bigger and stronger, he would have just mauled everybody. If he could have just played straight up on the edge and been a little bit faster, quicker, his game would have translated. He is somebody who you need to refine things with, and you need to work on the tools, just work on the traits a little bit, to work on the skills a little bit. You'll figure it out. But a good pick. And I think he just got mocked to the Broncos, right?
I don't know. I haven't seen that. Probably, though. I mean, a lot of mocks out there. And, Henry, you do a good job laying out what Zach Harrison is. Jose says, not a good sell, Henry. That's a no for me. And I don't think you were necessary. I think you were trying to sell him, but you laid it out perfectly about him. But what I took from it and what I took from watching the tape is he's just too much of a tweener. Too much of a tweener. Now, if you want to believe in him, you say Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb was 275 coming out of North Carolina State when the Broncos took him number 5 overall. 6'5". Zach Harrison, 6'5", 274. So you can say that, he can just be the next Bradley Chubb. But when you watch him play, he's always got his hand in the dirt. He's always a true defensive end. He's truly a down lineman. And I don't think that he would be a defensive end for the Broncos in a 3-4 because you kind of need to be closer to 300 pounds, and he just doesn't play that way. He does play more like a pass rusher, but I just think he might be too big to kind of be that outside linebacker. And just the way his game is, it really does fit a 4-3 defensive end. And so for me, even if he is able to develop, I just don't see it in a 3-4 with where the Broncos are. So for me, I'm going to have to pass here. But if you want to be optimistic, you do say that he's Bradley Chubb, going to be that big size pass rusher. Yeah. Now, one of the things, and really quick, if you want to be optimistic about him, you say that there is maybe not the most production, but there still is some production. His production really reminds me of Randy Gregory, not just in the stats, because it's not like the sacks are huge, but the forced fumbles are huge. The tackles for a loss are huge. Always being around the ball is huge. That's exactly what Randy Gregory is. The sack numbers for Randy haven't always been up there, but when he plays, he's like leading the league in forced fumbles. We saw that until he got hurt in the first 4 weeks last year. He's really long like Randy Gregory, but to put it into comparison. Henry, how big is Randy Gregory? Just like, is he a normal size outside linebacker? Is he big? To me, he's like a massive physical specimen.
He is massive.
So he is a massive dude. Zach Harrison weighs 30 pounds more than him. Yep. And that's just when you're kind of in that territory saying a guy weighs 30 pounds more than someone else. That's when you're like, okay, they probably play different positions. And that's kind of where I'm at with Zach Harrison.
Yeah. And again, I tend to agree. Like if they draft him, it also kind of makes sense because you're like, wow, this is a really freak athlete. But one of the things that, let's see, I think it was, we talked about this before. It was Sean Payton who said, you know, whenever you draft somebody, you know what role you are drafting them for. You know, you don't draft him and say, yeah, you know, we'll kind of figure out what it is. You say, this is what we draft him for. And they'll say, we're either putting him at defensive end or we're putting him at outside linebacker. And that's a decision they probably already made. Probably made weeks ago. Say, this is what he is.
Definitely.
And they'll say, oh, he's a defensive end. Well, at that, he is whatever on our board. And maybe that's a 5th round pick because they think that as a defensive end in this 3-4 defense, you'd rather take all these guys in front of him, you know? Outside linebacker, it's the same thing. So they'll figure out where they'd put him and rank him based on that, which again makes sense, but they pretty much made that clear today. But if they do think he has the traits, I mean, you could put him at outside linebacker. I still think I'd probably put him at defensive end in this defense. I mean, Calais Campbell coming out, 6'8", 282. And so that's kind of the mold that I think you'd be getting.
To me, he doesn't seem like a guy that, at least that from the film I watched, and I'm certainly not watching the 1,200 snaps per player that the Broncos watched last night. I'm a much more limited sample size, but he seems more of a pass rushing defensive end than necessarily a run stuffing defensive end. You kind of have to be that run stuffer if you're going to be that 3-4 defensive end.
But I think you'd have him out there for third downs. You know, I think that's the first thing you'd look at is say he is our pass rushing interior guy again. And if they think that he has the skills to actually be successful at that, which they might say, we just haven't seen enough to bet on it. Sure. But I do think that, to me, he hasn't really given enough hints that he can be a dominant edge rusher. You know, you're probably saying like maybe even you hope that he's more of a run defender out there. But I do think that with that sort of length and just the size and strength, he should be able to hold up in the running game and provide hopefully a bunch of juice is what you're hoping for in the pass rushing game. Also, I went back. It was it's Jordan Reed from ESPN. It was his mock draft from 2 weeks ago now, so not super recent. But he had the Broncos taking him at number 67.
There you go. So a potential link there. I just personally don't think that matchup makes sense.